Hello and welcome to this edition of Nation Building. On this program, we examine the political, social, and moral issues in the leadership of the Bahamas. On our program today, we're pleased to have with us a very special guest who will help to do somewhat of a breakdown analysis of the 2017 general election. And we'll get right into introducing our guest right after this break.
Said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price. If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama Coconut Milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna win. No, I don't wanna win.
It's a new day. This is our new day. And in the blue glow of the morning, there's still time to reach back into our dreams. To become dreamers in the daylight. And live our lives and hopes with open eyes. Yes, this is the day to do the things that will fill our lives with joy and with love. Dreamers in the daylight, anything is possible. This is our new day. We are alive.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from GEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
You bring passion, and we bring world-class infrastructure and innovation that's designed to help your business grow. You have determination. We've got your back with a super-fast LTE network, giving you access to whatever you need, when you need it. You offer superior service, we put you in control. With a dedicated care team to look after your business 24/7. Together, we have the advantage. Alive. Let's do this.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. On our program today, we are pleased to have with us Dr. Ian Strachan, who has been with us before, English professor at the University of the Bahamas. Dr. Strachan, welcome back.
Good to be
to
here.
Nation Building.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Strachan, a lot to talk about in a short time, and so we'll get right to it. Last time you were here, we had a very, very lively discussion, got tremendous feedback. In fact, my wife told me after the show that if you were a candidate, she'd vote for you, but I didn't know whether she spoiled her ballot, but she certainly was impressed by much of what you had to say. Of course, you and I disagreed about spoil the ballot, but
yes,
respectfully so.
Yes.
Want to talk, Dr. Strachan, a little about your position before the 2017 election on some of the major issues. But let's look at specifically, what did the 2017 election, what was the greatest takeaway from it before we get into the pre-discussion?
Yeah, well, I think before the election, I had predicted that we would see one of two outcomes, either a 97 style victory for the FNM or an 87 style victory for the PLP. It turns out we got a 97 style victory for the FNM. My own sense on the ground, talking to people around the country, was an overwhelming sense that people were gonna vote FNM. I have to admit, even though I knew that intellectually, seeing it happen on the scale that it happened was a bit, awe-inspiring in a sense, because it's very plausible that the PLP could have got no seats at all. So there was a huge groundswell, and I think that was just anti-PLP sentiment more than it was necessarily endorsing the plan and platform of the FNM going forward. But certainly a strong mandate has been given to the FNM. They have received their greatest victory ever, actually, in terms of their seat margin. And I believe percentage of votes. Yes, and percentage of votes. And in fact, if they, the first time ever that the PLP, since the modern Bahamas has, since the Bahamian state, has gotten less than 40% of the vote. So these are strong messages, especially for the PLP, that they need to clean up their act, and that their habit of staying loyal to the leader at all costs, even when it's clear the public opinion is turned and they want something new. And that particular posture, which ironically they also held in 97, doesn't serve them well. Let's go to your prediction, if you will, even though you said you were not in the prognosticating business, but for whatever it's worth. How did you and all of us get it so wrong from the extreme of predicting the possibility of the PLP winning by a narrow margin to most of us, I think, thought the Free National Movement would win, but would not win by a significant margin. You were on both ends of the spectrum. Yeah, I was. I mean, when I came to see you, it was a lot closer in my mind. The last 3-4 weeks of the election, the revelations about the conduct of Ministers Fitzgerald and Gibson, other disclosures, the role that Hubert Ingram played in the final days of the election on the platform as well as on Mr. Lang's program. These were decisive in shifting the population, and the PLP had no response. Speaking specifically about former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram's role, I have had countless debates, including one with my brother in Freeport, about the role that Hubert Ingram played in the FNM's landslide, some say tsunami victory. Many are of the view that the impact of Hubert Ingram, in fact, I have staff members who have said to me that they were tilted or convinced at the point of Mr. Ingram's coming out at rallies and putting red meat to the base, if you will, or throwing fuel on what was a fire that started already. That tipped them over. I've heard callers call into programs such as Mr. Lang's program to say that they were not prepared to vote, them and their families, but so there are some who believe that it played a tremendous impact, and then there are some who says, listen, this train was already rolling down the tracks, and the result was going to be what it turned out to be, and Mr. Ingram simply saw what was coming and jumped on. What say you? I think it would have been an FNM victory. It would have been a closer race. I think Ingram really pushed the gas pedal. He lent a whole lot of credibility. Dr. Minnis has not been a very powerful public presenter. He really hasn't shined in that context. Ingram came along and really put the hammer to the nail, basically. He has a level of believability and passion and credibility that he lent to
But
that.
you understand the fierce supporters of Dr. Minnis, especially after such a great victory, would say that, you know, man, you're talking nonsense. The truth is that this new style of leadership worked. And how do you argue with them?
I don't necessarily disagree. Here's what I would say. We have entered a moment where charismatic leadership in the person of the head executive, the leader, that is certainly no longer essential. It's been proven that it's no longer essential.
And so the Minnis way has worked.
And to that extent, we've entered a new era. We may not see either in who emerges from the PLP a charismatic leader either. So we may
you now have an interim leader in the PLP, and that of Brave Davis.
Right. So
that is non-charismatic.
Not really. So you may be entering a whole new phase, and what that says is the brands themselves can outlast or survive even that issue. What they did was they found the charisma when they needed it from someone who was a member of the team, Ingram. So it isn't that charisma is necessarily no longer essential, it's that it doesn't need to come necessarily from the leader. They made it work.
Effectively so.
And so now he's prime minister, and we'll see. He's certainly someone who has worked very, very well behind closed doors to organize, to mobilize, to consolidate. He's built a team, and so we'll judge him on his merits.
And if I can, well, not call you out, but for lack of a better term, on one of the things you pointed out, you did acknowledge on the last time we met before the elections that he very well may be prime minister. You had your doubts, but you talked about the fact, one of your criticisms of the now prime minister was that he did not demonstrate in opposition the kind of reform, culture of reform, he did not administrate a reform culture, if I can use that phrase, in the Free National Movement, and so you had serious doubts about whether he meant doing that in government.
Yes.
And you still maintain that? Are you still watchful to see?
Absolutely. I mean, I read the FNM's manifesto as relates to governance. I've paid attention to Dr. Minnis's addresses on the platform of the campaign as well as prior, and there are a number of reforms that he has promised, such as term limits, such as a recall, such as a set election date. He's talked about strengthening the Public Disclosure Act and so on. Manifestos are great. People can produce awesome manifestos. When you hold power and you have to exercise power and you have to manage a country and you have to deal with challenges, internal and external, your ability to stick to your promises is another thing altogether. It's my hope that he will act while he has such a fresh and compelling mandate. The PLP is basically scattered, and they won almost 60% of the vote. Now is the time to introduce, because some of what he says he wants to do requires constitutional reform. Now is the time to do it. Within these first 12 months, when you have a fresh mandate, to go back to the people and introduce the types of reforms which are universally supported. Term limits are universally supported, I would argue. Same thing with a set election date. Same thing with, I believe, an Independence Boundaries Commission, dealing with the issue of the Director of Prosecutions. These are things that the OAS has recommended that we do in order to increase the level of transparency in the country. Now that you have this fresh mandate.
And also to reduce the awesome godlike powers that anyone that sits in the position of Prime Minister has.
And that is very seductive. Very seductive. And we'll see whether or not, Abraham Lincoln said, if you want to know a man's character, give him power. We'll see.
The interesting, because on a last week's program, had a discussion with former Minister Fenton Nemore, and one of the things I pointed out very strongly I don't often give too much views on our program, but one of the things I am very, very, very strongly in support of, I think it's healthy for our country's democracy moving forward, is this whole reform agenda.
Yeah.
This idea of removing these godlike powers from anyone that sit in the position of prime minister and create the kind of transformation similar or even greater to that what Hubert Ingram did in 1992 after he won and went about opening up the airways, which
we give Mr. Ingram a lot of credit for that, and it was a good thing, but Ingram really dealt in half measures. Ingram really didn't dissolve or dilute the power of his office very much at all.
No, but let's
Dr. Minnis has a great opportunity.
Yeah, but let's give credit where credit is due. We debate these things and we argue them, but from where we were in 1987
certainly
to where we got to in 92, there was certainly a tremendous transformation in terms of the releasing the powers. I mean, I remember people having to talk to their members of parliament to open a business, you know, and so there is growth and there is development.
Absolutely.
And so we're simply pointing back to that just to say if we have similar transformation in our present administration now, early, it would do the country great good in a similar way.
I don't disagree, but I think we have to tell the history as it is. It was incremental change. At the time, because we had just suffered 25 years under Pinling, any improvement felt like a revolution. But the reality is, Ingram was elected on a platform of accountability and transparency, and 25 years later, we are still calling for transparency and accountability. So although he has many things to his credit,
You're saying it didn't go nearly far enough.
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. Yeah.
Well taken. And I also, for the record, wanted to say that I did a study, and I shared it on the previous program as well, that I looked at Jamaica's model. There's Trinidad. There are a couple other countries too have a similar enough story, and found that what governments don't achieve in terms of significant reform in the first year to 18 months in office,
it's not going to happen.
Leaders make the mistake, and our population, I believe, needs to drive their members of parliament, get involved, not just sit down and wait for 5 years to vote, and then we just keep voting one party out and the other one in. But get involved and drive their members of parliament with these reform agendas that is significant and is important to bring about change for the better of all of us. And the point is, if the government doesn't push ahead in its first year to 18 months with most of those significant reform ideas, and if it gets caught up in trying to bring the economy back and do these other things, I say most of those issues, a lot of them will fall by the wayside.
They will.
You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after this break.
You bring passion, and we bring world-class infrastructure and innovation that's designed to help your business grow. You have determination. We've got your back with a super-fast LTE network, giving you access to whatever you need, when you need it. You offer superior service, we put you in control. With a dedicated care team to look after your business 24/7. Together, we have the advantage. Alive. Let's do this.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from Gems 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice medley has on me is exhilarating.
Alive knows what you do today will determine the success of your tomorrow. So we've invested in world-class infrastructure and innovation so every business in the Bahamas can grow. Like our online business account that lets you manage all your business mobiles simply and efficiently through one portal. From adding users and numbers to drilling down where you can view details of individual data, calls, and texts to providing an immediate overview of usage month on month. We put you in control. Our people are here to help your business grow. Our relationship managers take the time to understand your business. And with our care team and our Alive stores, we are there to support your business needs. So let's work together, Bahamas. Let's grow together. Let us be part of your team. Let's do this.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. And on our program today, we are sitting in with Dr. Ian Strachan, English professor at UB. And of course, Dr. Strachan is sharing his thoughts about the results of the 2017 general election. Dr. Strachan, how did your campaign of Spoil the Ballot turn out in 2017?
I'm very happy. We're very happy. Of course, it was a collaboration between myself, Alicia Wallace, and Nicolette Bethel. And our goal was first and foremost awareness. Awareness and agitation. We would have loved to have evidence that tens of thousands of people spoil their ballot, but ultimately we wanted to affect the conversation. We wanted to draw attention to some of the serious problems we have with the way we do elections, and the population just participates, it seems, and doesn't question the consequences or the background of what's happening around the hoopla of a rally, et cetera, et cetera. We wanted to draw attention to the fact that, look, we don't know who funds elections. We should be shaping who becomes leader of these political parties. If the PLP had had a convention in the last 7 years and chosen another leader, they may not have been decimated. We believe that you should have proper debates. There was not a single debate between the leaders of the DNA, FNM, and PLP. How are voters to make informed decisions? How are we to find out if their platform is really just empty promises, or if they really have thought out how they plan to execute what they say they will do? We want to move the democracy forward. In order to do that, we needed to remove our focus from who won and focus on how the game, or how the contest rather, is played, the rules of the contest, because we believe a fairer contest will reap better results. We'll get better representation. Citizens will feel a greater sense of ownership, because right now what we have is people are engaged every 5 years, then they sit back and they hope it all turns out well. And what we wanted to encourage was citizen power. Understand that you don't just have the power to vote people out every 5 years. You have the power to affect every bill that's going to be passed in the House of Parliament with your voice, through petition, through demonstration, through sit-in, through visiting your MP, through calling your MP, through using your voice. We want to create a culture of citizenship, mature citizenship in our country, because our political culture is one that really infantilizes the people. People need to be informed, and the process needs to be open and fair. And so ultimately, I can't even say a shoestring budget, on no budget, we basically said, look at these issues. Okay, if you know who you want to vote for, fine, we respect that. But we're saying we feel that in this moment it's important to make a decision of conscience and to disobey civilly in this moment so we can draw attention to this. Now the election's over. The struggle continues because we still need these types of reforms.
How many votes did spoil your ballot?
Well, there was one exit poll that suggested 8% of those who voted voted for someone who wasn't on the ballot, or in other words, may have spoiled their ballot. We can only tell the number of people who registered, who didn't cast a vote, or whose vote didn't count. And that could be anywhere from 30 to 40,000. I'm still not sure I even trust the numbers that we're getting.
Are you getting these numbers, Dr. Strachan, from the parliamentary registration office?
I was about to say to you that I'm not even sure I trust the numbers I'm getting from the parliamentary registrar.
Are you calling into question
Absolutely.
the credibility of the parliamentary registration office?
Listen, we need to deal with the registration of voters in a serious way. This is a major problem. If the advanced poll showed us anything, if the number of alarms people were raising about being turned away from registering because the people weren't happy with the blouse, there's so many issues, and the questions even about the MyCal constituency, when the numbers came in, what are they? There's a lot floating around.
Yeah, but I mean, from every election, Dr. Strachan, you hear these criticisms, but we're talking about, I want to make it clear for our viewers, we're talking about the official results of the general elections, and you're calling into question the Parliamentary Office of the Bahamas as to whether the numbers that they're putting out is accurate.
But do you bear in mind the Free National Movement drew attention to ballots that were clearly opened, ballots that were in the wrong boxes? This is not stuff I'm inventing. This is stuff the FNM observed and complained about. So I think it is logical. It is actually logical.
How do the citizens know of our country rest and feel comfortable that the results are genuine?
Well, I think the result was nonetheless so resounding and lopsided. No one's watching it anymore. No one cares anymore. I actually think, for instance, the FNM could probably take at least 2 of those seats the PLP won to court and might win them, but they're not going to.
Which 2?
I think Cat Island should be drawn into question for sure.
Why would Cat Island be drawn into question? Cat Island, and I know my records are accurate. Cat Island was won by Philip Brave Davis by, I'm told, a goodly margin. Why would that be in question? I'll get that number for you in a second.
Ask the candidate for the Free National Movement if he thought that there was anything untoward about the election process in Cat Island, San Salvador, and Rocky.
I know what he thinks, and I know he doesn't think that it was fair.
I think Gladwell McDonald is an honest man and a good citizen, and I don't think he would fabricate things.
I think so too, but most candidates complain. When I say I think he's credible, but I have to discount his criticism or dissatisfaction with the results with the fact that most candidates don't always seem to find, losing candidates that is, unless it's a lopsided loss, find some issues with the result. So I'm not certain. Before the show is over, I'll get those numbers and make sure we look at them. But is there another seat besides Cat Island that you think would be in question?
I think St. Andrews and Eggleston should be looked at more closely, but that's just me.
Cat Island, Philip Brave Davis got 852 votes, which was 60%, to Gladwell McDonald's 548, which is 39%. Significant margin, somewhere in the vicinity, just under 300.
Okay.
How do you question 300 votes?
I take Gladwell McDonald at his word.
Okay. All right. Let's look for a moment, Doc, at some of the seats that we most in media predicted would have gone another way. In fact, there's a history of the PLP winning most of these seats. Baintown, let's start with Baintown. In Baintown, Dr. B.J. Nottage was beaten by young Travis Robinson by a whopping margin. 2,175 votes for Travis Robinson, 1,252 votes for Dr. Nottage. The DNA ended up with 4%. You're talking about 61% to 35%. How does the PLP in Baintown, one of the bedrock, the belly of the PLP, how do you go from a significant victory 5 years ago and over the last the last time Baintown, when it was
It's been
Bain and
won-
Grantstown,
yeah, it's been won by
was
the
won
FNM.
by the FNM, was in 1997 when the
Yeah.
FNM wiped out everything.
Yeah.
And their performance was extraordinary. And so one could understand why they lost Baintown then. But how does the Progressive Liberal Party get wiped out in Baintown?
Well, I think there are a number of factors. I think in the case of Dr. Nottage, who was, as you recall, someone who had left the PLP and formed the CDI and then returned, questions about his health, questions about what was going on with him the last time he appeared on the rally stage. You know, we want leaders to demonstrate strength and fitness and soundness of mind and body. And I think there were serious questions about Dr. Nottage's health. I think that this is all also a part of the general just turn of the tide. You know, Perry Christie lost in Centerville.
Yeah,
I would never have suggested.
Christie lost by a small margin.
Yeah, and I think,
so my question, just to be sure,
Yeah.
is really, I'm not trying to critique Dr. Nottage per se, but for an open critique of the PLP as a whole, if you felt fair enough that it was his doing, his health issues or whatever, or concerns,
I think it was
or
very
anything
bad.
else,
I think it was
that
it was fatal. I think what happened and the speculation about it was fatal to his particular campaign, and also obviously seriously damaged, just created a general sense that the PLP was not prepared to change, that the leadership was old. You know, there were images circulating of them asleep at different events. It just hurt them.
So
yeah.
to be clear, what you're suggesting is the numbers in Bainstown. I was trying to look to see the last results, but to my mind, the margin of victory was significant in 2012, and so you have a reversal of proportions that's
beyond
reasonable.
PLP's voted against the PLP.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and so my question is, I take it you might have answered it, but I wanted to make sure. You're saying you thought the candidate himself contributed to the extent of the loss?
Of course, he's not alone, but yes, in the case of Dr. Nottage, I think that it is that, but in addition to that is the general disaffection with the PLP, a general sense that the PLP
in that case,
was out of
what was
touch.
greater? What was greater, the candidate or the party's performance?
In that case, I can't be sure because I haven't done any focus groups or surveying.
But your opinion?
My instinct is that it was Dr. Nottage. It was his situation, his health,
Okay.
and yeah.
And
I think combined with that, you know, there's such a great contrast with a 21-year-old, you know, young man.
And to be fair, voters, I don't know that it is reasonable to lay at the feet of most of the people who lost in the PLP the fact that they were bad candidates per se. I think the tsunami was so great that even with them being very good representatives, if Dr. Nottage was, or even if he had no concerns, or health concerns or anything, I couldn't see people like him winning despite his best efforts. Reasonable?
Well, I mean, I really didn't predict he would lose. I didn't predict that even. I
don't know of any. I've met anyone who predicted he would lose.
So I didn't predict that Shane Gibson or Fitzgerald would lose, because, and here's the reason. It's basically that the behavior of the electorate for the last 20 years has been that certain PLP seats have been controversy or scandal proof. The relationship that the MP has been able to cultivate or establish with those individuals, the legacy of the party, the ties that they've been able to establish, have been able to weather controversy and scandal. And I just assumed it was going to continue.
Quick question before we look at a few other seats. Do you see the Free National Movement being able to hold on to a constituency like Baintown or Centerville in the next election, notwithstanding how good they perform?
You know, you're asking me to project 5 years ahead, but I would imagine no. I think that this level of hold on New Providence is essentially impossible to maintain or for a long stretch for the free national movement.
Okay. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. We'll be right back after these messages.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama coconut milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna win. No, no, I don't wanna win.
It's a new day. This is our new day. And in the blue glow of the morning, there's still time to reach back into our dreams. To become dreamers in the daylight. And live our lives and hopes with open eyes. Yes, this is the day to do the things that will fill our lives with joy and with love. Dreamers in the daylight. Anything is possible. This is our new day. We are alive.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from Gems 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice medley has on me is exhilarating.
You bring passion, and we bring world-class infrastructure and innovation that's designed to help your business grow. You have determination. We've got your back with a super-fast LTE network, giving you access to whatever you need, when you need it. You offer superior service, we put you in control. With a dedicated care team to look after your business 24/7. Together, we have the advantage. Alive. Let's do this.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and I'm here today with Dr. Ian Strachan, English professor at University of the Bahamas. Dr. Strachan, before we went to the break, was scrambling to find those numbers for Baintown in the 2012 election, and we do have them. In fact, Dr. Nottage received 2,856 votes to the John Bostwick of the Free National Movement, 1,754. So it was in fact a margin of over 1,000.
When Nottage won.
When Nottage won in 2012. And that tradition has been held for 20 plus years. So I just wanted to, for the record, to state that it is a significant swing.
I think what's interesting is how big a mandate the FNM has received without having a performance a performance record of the last 5 years. When you think about the F&M's victory in 1997, it was almost an endorsement of Ingram's first 5 years,
yes, it
and
was.
also a message to the PLP that Pinling really should have sat down. So those two things gave you that huge victory. This time around, the F&M has not been in power. We don't really know what we're getting.
And the criticism of the Free National Movement and its leader in opposition was not good.
No,
generally
it wasn't.
speaking.
And
there was no question.
And so I
that
would really argue that the average person who voted F&M doesn't really know for sure what they're going to get.
They know what they didn't want.
They know they didn't want more than anything. And they may be clear about 2 or 3 things that they've heard Dr. Minnis say they will do. But this is really going to be an interesting
Does
process.
it mean then that the Bahamian people are still at a place where we vote out governments and not vote in governments?
Absolutely. And
is there a danger in that?
There is a danger. There's a danger because you are not evolving as a citizenry that is requiring more of the process. Your vetting is entirely emotional. And as long as it remains emotional, it's susceptible to dishonest emotional manipulations and irrationality, as opposed to having these individuals properly come to the public and answer hard questions about their record and about their plans and how they plan to deliver them, which might make it a lot more difficult to simply just throw the wool over people's eyes or just make blanket promises or accusations. It becomes harder to make a decision then, yes, but at the end of the day, I think that the citizen, takes full responsibility for the government that comes in, more so than now, where it's I've done it, I've shown you, and now, okay, I'll put the sleeping giant back to sleep. I think what we need is an awake citizenry, and I think that we get an awake citizenry. That citizenry insists on being informed and is always asking questions and demanding the answers.
Let's look at a few more, and we won't go into too detailed with the limited time that we have left. But this for brief commentary. One of the other seats that was watched with great anticipation was the leader of the DNA, Branville McCartney's seat. Well, not his seat, because the seat belonged to
his former seat.
His former seat, but
yes.
He ran as the leader of the DNA, received over 1,000 votes in the 2012 general election, much to the surprise of many, and the DNA ended up with 8.49% of the votes. This time, the Bamboo Town residents went heavily in favor of Renwood Wells. He received 2,561 votes, which was 54% to Gregory Burroughs is 1,512, 32%. And then Branville McCartney ended up with 604 votes, 13%.
Yeah.
What do you make?
I live in Bamboo Town. And I can tell you that I wasn't surprised when Brian did as well. He didn't win, but did as well as he did in 2012 because he had been a very engaged MP. Very, very engaged. And people were really very happy with him. So when he became DNA, I knew he wouldn't win, but I knew he would show well. Greg Burroughs is a businessman. He's done well in the community. He actually has a business in Bamboo Town, but I knew he wasn't going to win. I knew he wasn't going to win because he was going to be a victim of the general anti-PLP sentiment. Renwood Wells has just had the fortune, basically, of knowing when to switch sides.
That's it?
Yes. I mean, it's hard to look at Bamboo Town and see the stamp of Renwood Wells on the ground. He's a dynamic guy. I like him, but compared to Brand's record in the constituency, he pales. So it's not really about the quality, because, and again, what's a good MP and what's not, we could debate that. Because I don't necessarily think it's MP's job to be social services and be Santa Claus. But by Bahamian standards, Brand was probably the best MP they ever had. But the bottom line is...
Are you suggesting that Mr. McCartney was social service and Santa Claus? Or he became that for the residents?
Busing the elderly, he was doing lots of awesome things. There are things that are needed. I just don't think the legislator needs to do them.
That's not
they
the
should be
legislator's
done. That's
job.
what churches and civic organizations are for.
It's true. Isn't it true that we have redefined in the Bahamas what a legislator job is? He's no longer a lawmaker, but a likable guy that does everything from taking care of the elderly, providing after-school care, and all
We
the rest
haven't
of it.
redefined it. That was always what we, that's what we've wanted from it in our, patronizing system. We need to redefine the legislator as an actual legislator. MPs on the side make laws, but they are judged by their attendance at funerals and weddings and their ability to provide you $100
in
when you need
truth,
it.
the reverse should be true.
Yes.
They should be judged on, but you can't get a culture of, you can't get to our people to judge these members of parliament, these legislators properly when they're not educated on what, properly educated on what the role of a legislator
Absolutely.
is.
That's true.
And so I think that's where we're struggling. But people like you over the next 4 years, 5 years, will do well to use your energies and efforts to maybe not just spoil the ballot this time, but begin some form of movement to educate. You're an educator.
Absolutely.
To educate people about what standards they ought to look for and what to be demanded.
I won't be spoiling my ballot next time, but I certainly will be, God's willing, over the next 5 years, advocating for a stronger democracy and greater accountability.
And I wish to publicly on this program encourage you and others like you to begin, not a political movement, but begin a movement of like mind to bring about transformation in our country. I think the country is ripe for it. To cause the necessary education to take place of our citizenry, and also to ensure that the next time we have a general election, candidates are forced to have debates.
Absolutely. Well, the University of the Bahamas
create a debating commission of some
Yes,
sort.
the University of the Bahamas tried. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done. We're having the second Future of Democracy conference in July 21st to 23rd, and we invite the public to come and participate as we try to see how we can strategize, work together, and come up with a game plan to really hold our leaders to account and create a better system of representation. And so I look forward to that in the month of July.
Real quick, Angliston, Fort Charlotte, Pine Ridge. Angliston, again, mostly predicted to go to Glenys Hanna Martin. She did eventually win, not by a great margin. This time it was 49% against Raymond Roll. I think that's Raymond's third attempt.
Look at Reese Chipman, don't give up. Your time will come eventually.
And Celie Moss from the DNA got 4%. Angliston, we kind of did no surprises there. Fort Charlotte, big surprise. Mark Hughes, again, one of those candidates that the wave, I think, took.
Absolutely. I mean, Mark, he's from Fort Charlotte. He did well. If you look at his numbers when he was DNA, he did well.
Got 500
yeah,
and some
he did
by
well.
those standards.
And so,
some say denied Shivago Lang, former Minister of State for the Economy.
Yeah. I knew Mark Hughes would do well. Again, I didn't expect Alfred Sayers to lose, but you're right. Mr. Sayers was a casualty of the Christie effect, is what I would call it.
Another seat in Grand Bahama, Pine Ridge. When the chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party was on our program, he insisted that Grand Bahama that Michael Darville would win in Pine Ridge. The information I got suggested otherwise, but it was proven that, would you say with the margin, Frederick McAlpine, now Member of Parliament elect for Pine Ridge, got 2,496 votes, 53% of the vote, compared to Michael Darville's 2,025. So you had a margin there, somewhere in the 400, just over 400 votes. Decent, but not a tsunami-like margin.
No, I expected if the PLP were going to maintain any foothold in Grand Bahama, it would be West End and it would be Pine Ridge. I am more surprised that Wilchcombe fell than I am that Darville did, although I thought he stood a good chance. McAlpine is, very dynamic speaker, obviously, and so I'm less surprised by that. I am certainly more surprised.
But for me, the
Wilchcombe's
criticisms in Grand Bahama of Dr. Darville was significant. Whether the people had too high of an expectations or not, I don't know. I'm just saying, as I listened to the feedback, there was significant criticism of him. And I think mostly had to do with the fact that he promoted Grand Bahama in a way that sent the message that it wasn't as bad as it was. And a lot of people got turned off from that. To the extent that that impacted him, don't know the final outcome of that, but obviously the PLP had great hopes for him. I think he's expected to be, or is appointed to the Senate.
Well, yeah, I wasn't on the ground there, but
right. But that was an interesting race and one that was on the watch list. Let's look at a few of the DNA top performers. Saw Stephen Greenslade getting 9% of the vote, 514 votes against the Minister of State Halkidas. That was in Golden Isles. He was certainly his numbers suggested that he did well in light of the result, overall result. Also, Kumalafe ran against Dr. Minnis and got 420.
She's a very strong candidate.
7%.
You know, good. She was a good candidate. Period. Should have been a good candidate for anyone.
And I suspect, based on our political history, that people like those will be picked off by the Progressive Liberal Party next time. That's just my speculation. Don't know what will happen for sure. But let's talk now as we wrap up.
How did Mortimer do?
Didn't look at his numbers. Can't recall them offhand. But most of the candidates ended up down in the 4%, 3% range. Wanted to talk about the future well, before we do that, talking about toppling the giants, let's talk about West End before we talk about the future.
Sure.
West End had journalist Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe taking out Obi Wilshcombe.
Yes.
Again, great predictions. I can't tell you. I have had 3 people that I know that predicted that Pakeisha would beat Obi Wilshcombe. He's had a love affair, or the people have had a love affair with him going back 15 years plus, and he's performed even when at times you thought he was in trouble. He had always pulled it off. Interesting enough, polling divisions 1, 2, 3, and 7 was won by Wilshcombe. I would be interested in finding out, wasn't able to get that information for the show, whether those would be in West End proper, because it's always been said that the West End people would not let go of Obi Wilshcombe. I think prior to the election, it was said that Bimini, which has a lot of people from Grand Bahama that transitioned there for jobs, had diluted the culture of Bimini, certainly as it relates to politics. And so it was always anticipated that she would do very well there. But obviously, she did well overall, winning a significant amount of those.
Yeah, there are certain people that were, you know, on both sides that I rooted for. Wilshcombe is a cousin, but I was rooting for Pakeisha, so I'm happy for her. I know that there were great sacrifices.
She had gone there before in 2012
to become a part of frontline politics. So I'm happy. I'm happy for her. I think it's fresh. It's regrettable that the FNM ran so few women. I think that was a unfortunate mistake, but I'm happy that she was able to win. Obi Wilshcombe was one of those people who really should have been vying for leadership of the Progressive Liberal Party. The outcome for the PLP is really very interesting. What this does to that party going forward, what are the lessons they will be learning, if any? How do they regain the trust of the Bahamian people? Issue of integrity, issue of being in touch and actually being able to execute. People believe they've always had, they've been able to attract talent, they've always had big ideas and vision, but they really credited the FNM for greater management of the system, more discipline, more discretion, and better execution. They've got to try to figure out how they're going to reshape themselves. And I think it's key who the leadership is.
And I'm getting to that right now. The one question I have for you before we talk about the DNA and the future of the country, the current leader of the Progressive Liberal Party is titled interim, I believe, leader, because he wasn't elected, but their constitution allows for the deputy leader to walk in the chair if an event like this happened, is Philip Brave Davis. He is of the Christie generation. He served faithfully, I believe, with Perry Christie, wanted to take over the leadership of the party. Christie had promised not to go full term, which he did, and so Davis has his opportunity to lead. Question is the Bahamian people prepared to, do you believe, will the Bahamian people, are they likely to support a I guess, represented new Progressive Liberal Party led by Philip Brave Davis?
I can't say no, because we've had unimpressive opposition leaders who have become prime ministers, in the case of Christie and Minnis. So although I may not think that, although I would say this, I mean, I think Davis gets things done. I think he's definitely an insider. I think that he probably has widespread support within the party. I don't know if he has Christie's support.
To be sure, the PLPs, if nothing else, has to weigh the fact that their choice when they last had a convention of choosing the status quo got them in big trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. The biggest problem the PLP has is it cannot seem to reconcile its internal politics with the national politics. They ignore the national politics. They ignore what the people on the ground want. They ignore what rank and file PLP voters want. The only thing that seems to matter is what the delegates and the representatives do. If they continue on that trend, we can expect someone like Davis to be leader. The problem is, will they be able to sell that to the Bahamian people? 5 years is a long time.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the DNA quickly and the future of the country. Does the DNA survive? Does Brandville get it that maybe it's time to pack up and seek refuge in the Progressive Liberal Party?
I think the DNA has great difficulty staying alive these 5 years. I think that we may be seeing the end of the DNA. I could be wrong.
And Brand is an attractive politician, so I'm sure the PLP would be happy. The FNM
question is, would he be happy?
The FNM certainly doesn't need him, but it's landslide victory. But the question is, would he, if he wants to be?
I mean, I don't know his mind, but I mean, I think that should be something he considers. I think the PLP would be wise to look for fresh faces. Davis, Christie, and Ingram were all legal partners. They represent a trifecta. Go somewhere else. Do something else. Start a new culture.
And that would be my advice. And that is your advice to the PLP.
Yeah.
So from that,
not necessarily Brian McCartney, but
what do you make of an Alfred Sayers?
I thought that Alfred, if he had gotten the leadership of the PLP, would have the PLP.
But he has no seat. Better. Does he have a chance? Or?
The PLP needs to rethink. The person who should probably lead them is not in the House. But will they go that route, or will they do what they traditionally do? So they've gotten beaten like this before, but they know that in 5 years they're going to look a lot better. They'll dust themselves off. And
what do you make of Fred Mitchell's role in any leadership of the Progressive Liberal Party?
I think that in a Democratic PLP, Fred Mitchell, Obie Wilchcombe, Alfred Sayers, and Brave Davis should have had at it. I'd like to see a woman in there, like maybe Glynis Hannah Martin, should have gone at it, debated one another, come to the 75,000 then PLP voters, and let the people decide based on the strengths and merits of them. And I think the PLP would have been a better place. That didn't happen because they are undemocratic and corrupt. And they haven't shown me that they're prepared to do anything different than that. I hope they do. Mitchell is experienced, he's crafty, he's a great communicator, and he is
very knowledgeable,
hard-nosed, and so he will do his best to give the FNM hell.
So they need him as a part of their leadership going forward.
I don't think they have a choice. I think I don't see the PLP got so wiped out. I don't see how it goes forward without some semblance of the Christie administration shepherding it for a time.
And some of my
and some of them don't need to step aside. So some of them should remain. I don't think Halkias' career should be over, just because he lost, et cetera, et cetera.
Some of my political advisors are telling me that Brave Davis would not have Alfred Sayers anywhere near the leadership equation. For example, being passed up for a Senate appointment and so forth, because naturally it threatens his.
And so if we follow that logic, Alfred's career may be over. The fact of the matter is, look at Minnis. Minnis came in. He had a brief mandate. Then they lost faith in him. He had to be ruthless and scientific and surgical about securing his power.
You mean
and
by
that
cutting away?
And that meant getting rid of almost everyone who was associated with the Ingram administration. Even though I think,
but he brought many of them back. In fact, he gave Loretta an opportunity to come back. Some would say,
yeah. But
many didn't want to go back.
Yeah, but the signal. I think he sent a clear signal, and so Davis may do the same thing.
Okay, Dr. Strachan, we've come to the end of our program. It is never enough time when we sit down, and we have to do this with reasonable regularity. So I'm going to have to ask you to stand by for us to periodically get together and to discuss the nation's business as we do our part in building our democracy. On behalf of all of us at Nation Building, it's been a pleasure bringing you this broadcast. I want to thank you and stay tuned for next edition of Nation Building.